So I'm hoping that the teacher in me will try to keep the time, but I'm grateful that we are here now as here I'm talking as a social scientist, not as a doctor, not as what, and we are now moving from children and research utilization basically to now issues around stigma. So, and we wish to see a stigma-free environment in Uganda so that people can access the services they need. So I'll be brief about who we are, the background, issues around index studies, what stigma we're talking about, what is that index, the key findings. We've done several studies, but I'll just pick out a few, and then the lessons and how we can translate this knowledge, and then do my final conclusions. So I'll be brief. NAFOPHANU is the National Forum of People Living with HIV and AIDS Networks in Uganda. We made 15 years in May. We're a national non-government organization, but most importantly, we are the umbrella organization that brings together all organized groups of people living with HIV that we call networks. Dr. Sam talked about TASO, Dr. Philippa is talking about Muju. We have all these facilities that treat people, but when they go back to the communities, what happens? So that is how we come in to bring these groups together. So we operate everywhere, 112 districts, but we have what we refer to as the national level networks, the cohorts of those who are living with HIV, the young people living with HIV, the women, the teachers, the armed forces. So this is the role of NAFOPHANU as a coordinating entity, basically to do advocacy, to mobilize resources, build their capacity, look for information, including research and documentation, and in the process, we are able to have this person living with HIV, able to live a quality and productive life in a sustainable manner. We don't want to hear adherence today, and tomorrow there is non-adherence. And basically our mission is to spearhead and coordinate so that people living with HIV actively participate in the response, be it at the community level, at the district level, national, and beyond. So today we are talking about research utilization. This is in line now with the work that we've done as NAFOPHANU, in line with the stigma, which remain critical barriers to HIV prevention. But first of all, what is this stigma you are referring to? The process of devaluing someone, either because the person is living with HIV or is perceived to be living with HIV. And when we talk of stigma, that process of devaluing, then it brings in also the discrimination, which is the unfair and unjust treatment of an individual, either because this person is living with HIV or is perceived. There are people look, I think the way this person looks, the way it's looking could be HIV positive. That is perceived. You do not have the fact, you don't have the evidence, but you're trying now to make a conclusion. So this calls for measuring how much stigma and discrimination actually exists among people living with HIV, so that we can program better, so that we can have our advocacy efforts well steered. So we've done a number of studies. I hope I will have some time to come back and talk about these studies in the details. We did a national survey, how much stigma was in Uganda. We had about 1,110 respondents, 2012-2013. We have actually embarked on plans to do our second national survey. That was a baseline. Has the stigma reduced or it is still up? And in the process, we'll be able now also to disseminate and see this is the change that we have seen. We also got support from CAFOD, where we had an intervention. We targeted about 2,000 respondents. We did the index, that measurement. From the index, we did a number of interventions for 1 year. We went back to the same respondents. We had about 95 of the regional respondents after 1 year. And we actually realized we can reduce stigma. We reduced internal stigma from 53% to 35%. So that is something that we need to find out, can it work? Unfortunately, the money was not enough to continue with the interventions, so we could not go back. But at least it gave us a leeway to know that we can do an intervention and reduce stigma. We had the network of religious leaders do stigma among the LGBTI. We also supported the sex work organization, NESA, to see how much stigma actually exists among sex workers. Last year, we did 3 key studies. We wanted to find out how much stigma exists among young people. we have more of internal stigma. We'll be able to give you an idea of what the internal stigma is all about. What are those variables that make up internal stigma? What makes up external stigma? So we were able to go to 3 Busoga districts, Jinja, Mayuga, and Jinja, Iganga, and Bujiri. So we're able to find out that we actually have young people experiencing more internal stigma. We also went to Karamoja. Of all the studies we've done, it is Karamoja that has more of external stigma. I will be able to explain what the external stigma is about. And then also last year, we were able now to validate the stigma index tool. This is a global tool developed by the global network of young people, the global network of people living with HIV, to measure the stigma across the globe, so that the results that come out are comparable, and we can actually come and say this country has this stigma compared to the other countries. But along the validation of the tool, Uganda, Senegal, and Cameroon, who were able to capture the experiences from the 6 districts in central Uganda. So what stigma are we looking at now? So we are looking at it in 2 ways. What we call self-stigma is where the person is internally stigmatized. But we also have the stigmatizers, where we have the community, the health workers. So that is now what we refer to as external stigma. Are you excluded from family gatherings? Are you verbally harassed? Are you physically harassed? Are people separating utensils? You know, that becomes external. But when we are looking at the person is having low self-esteem, feeling suicidal, feeling ashamed, even saying I can't have children, I can't have sex, that becomes more of internal. And it is this that we needed now to quantify. Do we really have stigma as a country, as a region, or not? So the stigma index actually measures, quantifies how much stigma is there, basing on the experiences of people living with HIV. So you are measuring, you are describing, but what exactly is that stigma you are looking at? So the experience, the stigma and discrimination as perceived by people living with HIV. And we broaden our understanding of, so if we have this stigma, so what is the extent and what are those forms and trends of stigma? And in the process we have the evidence to allow us to do our advocacy better for policy reform, for service delivery, and in the process we are able to apply stigma reduction, evidence-based responsive strategies. So what do we consider basically when we are looking at these experiences? So we look at the experiences in line with access to health. What is that stigma within community and health settings? How about the workplace? How about the education institutions? Do you actually have stigma there or not? So we measure this. But also in line with access testing, treatment, care. What do people do because they're HIV positive? What don't they do because they're HIV positive? And what actions do they take? Are they resilient? Can they stand firm, have the self-confidence, have the esteem to be able to access the services, and even to be able to disclose to people that I'm actually HIV positive and I'm living positively? So I'll just do a quick one because of the time we cannot have all the summaries. This is from the Population Council project, so was supported because we pilot tested the tour at 3 countries, Uganda, Senegal, and Cameroon. And this is what, for instance, regarding internal stigma. The Ugandan bars are red. I hide my status from others. I sometimes feel worthless. I'm ashamed. I feel guilty. Being positive makes me dirty. It is difficult to tell people about my HIV status. All that you see there in red is Uganda. So we compare now with Senegal and Cameroon to see how we are doing. And indeed, if we are programming for Cameroon, I think the interventions would be different. But how about the issues around external stigma? So when you compare the two, you'll see that we do have, people hiding their status up to 60%. Others cannot tell people around 53%. But when we go to external stigma, you will realize that we actually have lesser external stigma now. 2.5 from exclusion from social gatherings, 1.5 religious activities, and we are looking at around, we had 401 respondents. And then we are looking at, those 2.5 excluded from social gatherings. So this tells you that we have more of internal stigma than external stigma. So as we utilize the findings and as we design our interventions, this means that we need now to be targeting more of the individual living with HIV to eliminate that stigma. But how is the situation in Karamoja? You can see the men in blue, the female in red, then the green in total. So you can see that majority of the Karamojong feel ashamed. We had the 977 respondents. We covered the entire region, the 7 districts. So if they are feeling ashamed, so how do we now utilize the information to be able to support the Karamojong better? So regarding how we've been able to utilize this knowledge, from 2013 we've done a lot in line with who are these respondents. Stigma index is by far with people living with HIV, so that one is automatic. We don't go out of the people living with HIV. That is a limitation, but that is how the tool is designed. We have also engaged the stakeholders as part of the check-on working groups, but for the national studies, we usually have a national steering committee. We are now constituting the steering committee to guide the upcoming national stigma index survey. But we have also disseminated the results at various fora, be it at district and national international levels, and this has been able to help us to be able to design basing on what the community says, what we pick from the districts, but also at national level. Fortunately, we are lucky that we are supported to have these findings at international level. So being part of ICASA, we've been part of the International AIDS Conference, but now getting back to Uganda, we've been able to disseminate at national level. We have Uganda AIDS Commission as our national coordinator, and as you could be aware, we have a multi-sector response where we have the self-coordinating entities coming from the various entities. So we have people living with HIV, we have civil society organizations, we have the line ministries, agencies and departments, we have the research, academia, scientists and professionals, where now we'll be able to try with the Uganda National Academy of Sciences as the coordinator. We have the media, the private sector, we have parliament, we have, they are about 10, the culture, the faith-based, all these are self-coordinating entities as coordinated by Uganda AIDS Commission. So yesterday we are lucky, we had the Professor Sam attending where we are disseminating these specific studies. So we usually do that. But we also take advantage of other forums. For instance, we are here, we are disseminating, but civil society organizations and implementing partners usually give us room to be able to go and disseminate the findings. But we also go back to the district level, where we did the study and where the people are, the government officials, the people living with HIV networks, the community-based organizations, the implementing partners at that particular level. So as I try to wind up, so in the case of Project SOA support, we've disseminated these results. We were at the International Conference in Amsterdam in July. We had about 3 presentations. One was with the global network of people living with HIV as implementers of stigma index, but we also presented at the Population Council, John Hopkins University satellite session on stigma intersectionality, but also the US government pre-AIDS conference. And we've been asked, so why would someone fund a stigma reduction intervention? What results would I be able to get? That is something we are now cooking, because at least we have people interested in funding stigma. We also disseminated at Uganda AIDS Commission yesterday with the various people who make up the self-coordinating entities, and we are finalizing their national anti-HIV stigma and discrimination policy, and the comment we received yesterday was the results are timely to guide us have a better policy. We've disseminated to 2 districts so far. Mitiana District Local Government, they are going to incorporate stigma reduction interventions in the HIV work plan. They have a general HIV work plan and they are going to integrate this. While in PG District Local Government and the implementing partners there was Raka Health Sciences. They have actually indicated that they will engage people living with HIV networks more effectively. They were engaging, but they did not know how much to engage so that they can reach their peers to ensure that the internal stigma is actually done. So key lessons, once evidence is provided, it becomes now easier to know how you can use the findings. We now know we have more of internal than external, so how do we go about it? How utilize this to have targeted interventions? Then number two, when we have the relevant knowledge on HIV-related stigma and discrimination, then it becomes easy to synthesize, to be able to influence policy, programming and advocacy. But also we need to have a constant interaction between researchers and decision makers on implementation of stigma and action interventions. This should be as regular as possible so that the data we have collected, we now have a lot of data, but we do not have the capacity to actually do more analysis, do more, cross-tabulation and all of that, to have more information out. And we also note that if all stakeholders came together, we could actually stigma-free environment. We are doing more of HIV prevention, care treatment, but without addressing stigma, it may be a problem. And indeed, this famous judge in Cameroon was able to observe, if we do not appreciate the nature of stigma, none of our interventions can begin to be successful, as AIDS is probably the most stigmatized disease. So thank you so much.